Hello, everybody. Welcome to Radical Ready Live. I'm your host for this hour, 50 minutes to an hour. I'm Dan Riley, and I've invited my brother on, and he is accepting and connecting, and we'll see his shiny face in about 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. He's close. Well, I'm going to fill some time while Pat is accepting here. Again, thanks everybody. Welcome to, I'm just going to accept Pat one more time here to make sure. There we go. Welcome to joining us today, and I think Pat will be on in a moment so we can see his face. Outstanding. Technology's working. Hey, Pat.
Howdy.
How's it going?
It's going okay.
Good. We have a good crowd already. I love it. So thanks everyone. This is our first live show. So I want to say this is new technology. I have not used Crowdcast before. I love it so far. So kudos to Crowdcast. And with that, it gives me the right to make a few mistakes. So I'll do my best. Any Crowdcast experts out there, if you see me stumbling, please give me direction. We're always learning from each other. So Pat, what's new? Before we introduce this whole concept, what's going on with your week? Everything. Come on, beginning. What happened this morning, yesterday?
Well, it's been a good week, better than last week. So we're here in Minneapolis, so we're in the dead of winter. I think we've been getting off a little bit easy this year, in my opinion. It's been cold as heck, but not like insanely cold. I think it's barely gotten below zero since the 1st of January or so. So that's pretty good. I rode my bike into work this morning. It's only 2 miles, but it was 10 degrees. So it felt good to get outside and hit,
I'm more of an LA guy. Like, if I was in LA, I would still get in my car. Like I stay in shape. I go to the gym, but if I had to go a mile, I'm still, I don't know, I'm driving.
You're in the wrong city, man.
I know. I really am. Hey, so we have Ben is on. Ben from out in Seattle. Good. Yeah. Good to see you on. Sanya's of course on. She's going to be joining us in a little bit. We'll give her the proper introduction. Chris Reese. Hey, Chris. Another Minneapolis veteran here is joining us. Pris is here from Hungary. Outstanding. Handful of other people. I'm going to ask everyone in a few moments to enter there, or just start. You can start doing it. Enter where you're from. We have some international folks, so I'd love to just enter your city. And if you don't think we're going to know the city, please give us the country. India. So Jeswin, thank you. Outstanding. What time is it in India, Pat? See how quick you are.
Well, we'll ask the person in India. That'd be a good idea.
We can do that.
11:30 p.m. I was going to guess about 10 hours ahead. So
all right, good. And Allison from the UK, outstanding. 6 hour difference there. I know that well.
Okay,
Kyle. Hey, Kyle.
Hey, Kyle.
It's been a while from North Carolina. Good to see you. Michael, outstanding. No, Massachusetts. That's local. No, another friend, Elsa from London. Thank you for joining. It's awesome. I love this. This is a very international group.
Budapest.
Yeah.
Ken Oler.
Ken Oler.
What's up, Ken?
Ken Oler. We might have to bring Ken live today for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We'll see. And Sanja, we're gonna give you the intro, but yeah, Argentina and Buenos Aires. So Sanja, we can't wait to have you on. So let's talk a little bit about the show. We Pat and I talked for a while, and we wanted to do this weekly show, and we're calling it Radical Ready Live. And the idea around this show is it's kind of like Seinfeld. It's a show about nothing, and it's about everything. We're going to tackle topics up and down and left and right. Obviously, we're going to relate it to the industry that we all live and breathe, and talent, analytics, and HR, and people, and technology. But when we think about this, all of those different topics, all walks of life are going to be welcome. I mean, we're going to be today. We have an incredible guest who we'll talk about in a little bit and bring her on. But we plan to bring on musicians and filmmakers um, and artists and those that might work in very different industries, but still share a passion for people and a passion for technology. And Pat, before we get going, this has been um, and this is an exciting week, or I guess next week, where there's a movie that we've just made and you've produced, and I also helped producing, called Tuscaloosa. But what's pretty exciting, and we have a few folks from the UK, so this is like the grand opening of this. The movie is finally going to be live and ready and available for streaming in the UK on February 1st. Is that right, Pat?
February 1st, yeah. I think we're going live on all major platforms in the UK, so Britain and Ireland. And you're absolutely right, February 1st, which I think is Monday next week. So we're super excited about that. We started to get some press in the UK, mostly favorable, which is great. But if you are looking for it in the UK, do be aware that the distribution company decided to change the title. So it's called Summer of '72. And this is one of these, like, speaking of kind of agile learning, like so the film Tuscaloosa went live here in the States March 13th last year, so about 10 months ago. And Tuscaloosa is a city in Alabama, and the film is based on a novel by the same name. But when we started to do our international sales, and Tuscaloosa it was decided it just was not going to get much attention, especially in the UK and in some other markets. So the distribution company in London really lobbied to change the film, and we kind of pushed back on it for a while, and then eventually they twisted our arm. But Summer '72 is where we landed, and they've been a great partner so far in terms of marketing and distribution there. So we're excited to see how the story resonates, and it's been pretty cool to see. Just take a step back. Tuscaloosa, aka Summer of '72, is set in 1972, not surprisingly, Alabama. And it's a coming of age story. It's kind of a beautiful romance, but it's set against the backdrop of the civil rights movement. And in many ways, it ends up being a pretty powerful story about white privilege. With the perspective of what that meant in 1972, and our main character Billy is sort of our proxy through that understanding. And it's been interesting to see how it will continue to be interesting how this story translates into other regions and markets. And so far we've been really surprised to see the strong reaction, and that this is just it's a powerful American story, but beyond that, it's a sort of a story for our times as we kind of move through turbulence and change, in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a testament to the power of storytelling, and we know how important that is in everything we do. Is a couple questions coming through. So, Allison, we will be streaming this on the next show live on LinkedIn, but after the show, we are going to post it to LinkedIn, so it will be streaming out on LinkedIn. And your question actually is about the movie. Sorry.
Yeah. So
yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Pat, you did the honors.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the movie Tuscaloosa. So you can find it on Amazon Prime for sure, and it's on really all the major platforms. I know it's free on Amazon Prime. You can find it on Apple TV. It's on YouTube. It's on Tubi. It's on all the major platforms. So yeah, if you just Google it, you'll find it. Tuscaloosa, like the city in Alabama.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Allison, for encouraging us to sell, not just overseas.
Yeah, we're really not here to sell movies. That's our secret. That's what Radical Ready Live is all about. So before we get going, I'm going to ask everybody, and it's just a simple question. It's been it's an easy way to say this. It's been a little bit of a wild time over the past few weeks, few months. So how's everyone feeling, right now? And do your best to just give me a word that kind of sets your mood, just in general. I mean, how are you feeling? Is it optimistic? Is it pissed off? Is it indifferent? And while everyone's typing this, frazzled, good one, Pat. How are you feeling? Hopeful. I love it.
Yeah, I'm feeling encouraged. I'm feeling encouraged.
Okay. Yeah.
We've got a long way to go, but I'm finding some strength.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons to feel encouraged, but why specifically are you feeling that way?
Oh, well,
getting there. Good.
Well, yeah, a few things, and I'll just share. So I actually just recovered from COVID. I had,
yes.
So I And so I had it, my wife had it, and I got a positive diagnosis about 2 weeks ago, I think, a little over 2 weeks ago. So I got off really lucky, symptoms were pretty mild, but, but it's still something to have to work through, and went through the isolation. And
Yeah.
then my wife Jennifer had it, and she's also fared well. But you come out of that, and you really, it gives you sort of a fresh lease on life. I'm really thankful to have my health and having got through that. And it's a lot of change going on in many different ways. I'm really looking forward to this year, but I know this is going to be a work. This is going to be a year that requires a lot of work and a lot of resilience, and I'm just feeling, I guess, encouraged to really kind of roll up my sleeves and get into it. And we're going to be chatting about a lot of that today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like Ben is spent yet optimistic. That's a good one. So we're seeing, hopeful. Like everyone can see all the comments. I believe
Getting there.
Positive, getting there. Michael, sorry, you're feeling frazzled. Hope the weekend's almost here. So hopefully you can recover a little bit. So unity in work, Pat. How do you this is something you and I have been chatting about. We talked about this on the PowFow conference yesterday, but how do you define it? What do you think unity in work means?
Well, this really resonated with us as we thought about, where we are, broadly as a culture. And I think the importance of feeling that connectedness is just so important right now. I mean, regardless of your political background, where we've gone through or your political allegiance, we've gone through a change here in the States, a shift. And my hope is that a lot of the polarization that we've been experiencing as a culture, and then the incredible stress that we've been through because of the pandemic, becomes something we can sort of, certainly as organizations and cultures, find a way to kind of find a new unity, a new cohesion, a new way of building sort of that kind of gravitational pull where we can all kind of feel connected, and hopefully then start moving towards the intention of what we want.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's those who know me, this is a time we have an opportunity to be optimistic and hopeful as everybody's feeling, and unity, like Pat, you were saying, it's a popular word right now. I think it's how we actually become united, right? Mm-hmm. The word of unity is the outcome, right? but the steps to become united, I think, is what we need to really start focusing on as a society, and of course within our organizations. So, today we're going to bring on Sanja in a moment, and I keep teasing the introduction. It's like a rock star buildup here. But the 4 areas, Pat, I think we'll be chatting about today. And when we think about unity in work, there are 4 key things that I just want to dive into when we bring Sanja on. And number 1 is just the front and center focus of mental health and well-being, and how this just has to be front and center. And just kind of get everyone's perspective on this. And would love, again, throughout this chat, please continue to add comments, ask questions. We'll do our best to keep an eye on those and answer them. Number 2, I want to just tackle the elephant in the room sometimes, and that's moving on traditional engagement and moving into the whole person experience. And what do we mean by this, right? It's not just lip service. I want to really start to get tactical around what do we mean, how do we meet each person right where they are. And we know this is going to require, and does require, new science, new sources of data for insight. So I want to dive into that. Number 3, I want to tackle this concept that we're talking about, of this constant change mentality, or this constant change armor. And we'll talk about that. We'll debate it a little bit. And then finally, and kind of what we've been chatting about, is how do we move beyond this cultural polarity and this divide within the organizations? And is it as simple as having a larger company vision and purpose that's bigger than the trivial things that divide us or polarize us, right? So those are the 4 topics. Pat, anything you would add, or you think we want to dive into?
No, that's great. Let's just dive in and get the conversation started. I think we should bring in Sanja.
Outstanding. So Sanja, I'm gonna invite you in a moment. I want to talk a little bit about you before I bring you in. So I had the opportunity I haven't met Sanja because we've been in a virtual world for a year now, but was introduced to her through the People Analytics Future of Work community, which is an awesome community we're a part of. And Sanja, I'll just simply say she's awesome. Talk about, I met my match with someone who is positive, inspiring. She puts me to shame. So we've gotten to know each other. We've been collaborating, chatting. She's currently taken on a new role, and we'll ask her to talk about this. She's the president of workforce at Question Pro. Prior to that, she was at Globant for a few years, and before that, I believe she spent about 8-9 years at Career Builder. She's in Argentina. She's lived in Chicago and London. She has her PhD in organizational psychology, and I know some of her research has been published in Time and CNN and the Wall Street Journal, Fast Companies, Forbes. So without further ado, I am going to invite her in, and we will dive into good conversation. So Sanja, invites on the way. We should see your smiling face. And this time, 3 seconds. 3.
You're getting
2,
good at this, Dan.
I know. I'm trying. I'm trying to get a job at Crowdcast too. A little side. Oh, look at that! My it was
magic.
So perfect.
Technology works.
Magic. Sanja.
I was trying to follow all the buttons, not cancel or
Well, you made it, and the countdown.
Hey, Sanja.
Perfect. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I was looking at all the comments about how people are doing, and Ben, you nailed it.
Yeah.
I was like,
That's how a lot of us feel.
Ben, if you get to know Ben, and actually on that, everyone throw in your LinkedIn address into so we can all connect, because Ben has got to be the master of quotes. Ben is brilliant. You got to get to know Ben. I could give compliments on everybody on this, but Ben can write something and you just be like, oh my God, I'm going to use that. He just writes the perfect sentence. We're going to have him on the show in a few weeks.
Yeah.
The master of quotes.
Yeah, Ben says Dan.
That's beautiful.
Touché.
So Sanja, tell us, I gave you a quick intro, but tell us about what you do, what you believe in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I feel so incredibly honored to be your guest, to be your first guest. Dan, when you reached out, I was like, really? You want me to come? Like, yes, I'll run over up to Minneapolis barefoot if I need to. Luckily, I didn't need to. It's quite far. But so I'm an eternal optimist. As we've talked, I think a few times, every one of our conversations has that thread around how can we change the world for the better? What are the things that we can do? How can we help each other? How can we help people? How can we better understand what in the world is going on? And so that's my forever quest. And in many ways, with my scientific background, it's through data, and through my psychology background, it's through trying to continue to figure out how to talk with people in such a way that they're open, how to talk with people in such a way that's really meaningful for them. And I think we still have a lot to figure out. I'm excited to do it though. I think to your point of how do we connect with people and what else do we ask and what other information do we look at? There's such a huge opportunity. But 2020 has given me hope that we'll be able to do that more effectively. And then more than ever, we have this groundswell of people like you two that are just leading the charge and have this incredible microphone where people love to join you and listen to you and say, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, let's do it. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, thank you for the support, Sanja.
And my love for you guys.
It's great to meet you. Hey, Dan, I've like, after hearing Sanja's intro, I've immediately got some questions around engagement. I'd love, if you're cool, I'm just going to jump in.
You jump in.
It's great to meet you, Sanja, virtually, but thanks again for being part of the club and part of the positive force in the universe as we move forward. I'd love to just kind of jump in around employee engagement. Dan and I have been talking about this quite a bit as we've been, kind of filtering through 2020 and looking ahead to 2021 and speaking with clients. And, we just presented last night at the People Analytics Future of Work conference, and one of the things we talked about was, the engagement levels that most of the research showed last year. And I'm sure, everyone on this stream is probably an engagement nerd, and we're not surprised by what we learned, which was that, engagement levels went up pretty high as we went up from Q1 into Q2 of last year, which is pretty typical, when you get into crisis mode. And then we saw it's kind of slip back as we started to move into Q3 and Q4. And then, you sort of expect the change curve, or kind of that S curve will probably kind of make that slow return as we move forward into 2021. But here's the question I have for you. I mean, any comments you want to make on that would be helpful. Yeah. But Dan and I have talked a lot about how the idea of work and workplace, a lot of the science, we feel like may need to be reimagined and changed for a lot of different reasons. So it's not that engagement isn't incredibly helpful and instructive, but we kind of feel like it may become a little antiquated pretty quickly, or at least as it exists. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on the science of it, and kind of how should people analytics and folks and talent management directors and managers be thinking about engagement as they go into 2021?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. I actually ran a survey in our company just a few weeks ago, and I looked at engagement as one of the measures, and it scored pretty high. And I looked at intention to stay, and it scored pretty high. I think seems a question for we're a pretty optimistic group. I'm new, I'm getting to know everyone, but I was happy to see the results. And then I looked at the correlation, and it was so low between the two variables. I was like, oh, so you can be very engaged, but it has no impact on whether you're going to stay, or very little. How weird. And I think that goes to your question. So, okay, are people engaged or not? Are they not engaged? If you're choosing to stay with a company, what are all of these other things that make a difference? And not that intent to stay is the be all and end all, but I don't know why lately I've been comparing work a lot to romantic relationships. I think maybe just it works in my mind. And so, I mean, if you're like really in love with someone and you're happy, and somebody asks you, do you think you're still going to be with this person in 2 years? Like, I really hope you say yes. Or like, very likely, not like, maybe I'll come across something better. And, I know work is a little different, and maybe it's a little more transactional, although I would still love the idea that, you just fall in love with your job and you grow with it and you make such an impact that you don't have to look somewhere else. And so what is it that drives it? And so I looked at, quickly all the other variables, and nothing was highly correlated.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, so we need to go back and figure out what is it? Because again, I know there are other factors, but I have to believe that there's some things that people are saying, I do want to stay in the organization, but engagement doesn't seem to have that big of an impact. What could be? And I even looked at things like this one really surprised me. I need to look at more specific factors, but like well-being, I thought, okay, I got it. It's going to be well. And so I think I will recognize that it's not an answer to your question. It's almost like an additional question to your question.
Yeah.
But just how incredibly complex it is. And so just trying to look at, and I ran a quick poll today, because one of the really amazing things in my job today, until somebody pulls the plug, is that I can ask these like quick poll surveys to like 300, 600 workers in the US, and I give results in like 10 minutes. And so you can imagine I've been going nuts doing those things. And so one of the questions I asked today, thinking, after PAFAO, is I asked people, if you could pick flexibility working from anywhere, flexibility and the time, what would it be? And it was almost equal. Somebody give me some clear answers, please. And so I think, again, kind of recognizing that it may be not giving you like, Patrick, this is going to be the 5 factors that we should look at as we move into 2021, is just how complicated that situation is. And I think how little maybe people know, even themselves. Like they're saying, I'm confused, I'm tired, I'm spent. And how do I get myself out of it? And so I think it'll be interesting how we do research around it, because I do think in some ways it'll be a dialogue, because sometimes people will tell us, and other times I don't think they'll know. I think they'll look and ask, like, well, what should I be doing? Like, I don't think you find many people who don't want to love their job. Like, who doesn't want to love what they're doing? Who doesn't want to be passionate? But then you ask people how often that's a reality, and then how do you bridge that gap between I want to do amazing and I want to love it, how do I find the right place to do it? So I'm going to stop rambling because I didn't answer you,
No,
but maybe I gave you some
Well, I
interesting
think,
things to
yeah,
think
I'm sure
about.
I'm just gonna say things, and Dan, I'm sure you're gonna jump in. No,
Yeah.
exactly. This is we believe I mean, there's a lot of noise that's happening, I think, within the data and constructs and ideas. I've seen a few people talk about that. So if
Yeah.
you think of employee engagement as a construct, right, this idea of being psychologically connected, right, to the work, to our work, and energized by that. So many of the basic concepts of that are just different, right? Like where is work now? And I'm not around people anymore, and there's an abstraction. And as humans, we're losing the intimacy and connection and energy we get traditionally from the workplace, and that's for the work from home crowd. And then for the people that still need to go to their work, there's health and safety concerns like never before. And so there's just a lot of new constructs and pieces that are there. And I agree with you. And then people don't necessarily know what they want, or there's a lot of variability. Because of
Yeah.
the ambiguity. And I think, and Dan and I talk about this a lot. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Dan, which is there are, a really kind of a new set of individual preferences, I think, in terms of what people need and are looking for in this ambiguity,
Yeah,
Dan, what?
absolutely. And one thing, to go back to the relationship concept, I use that often too, around comparing engagement to a relationship. And if you think about, let's tackle the concept of love. It's like, I intend to love you for 3 more years, right? That'd be a question you might ask. And again, love isn't sort of these, what makes a relationship work, as we know, isn't sort of the big sweeping things that we say, or the big sweeping things that we do, or some larger commitment. It's the small little things. So kind of tying this to employee experience, that we do over and over again. And those things that we do because we want to do them, right? And because we're inspired to do them. And because I think for a person to really feel engaged, they need to be inspired by the organization they work with. And to continue to remain in love, you want to feel inspired, and you want to feel a better person when you're with that person. So I think that, that idea around a relationship and a relationship with a company is really, there's a lot we can learn from that. And I guess number 2 with that, it's interesting based on the research you were talking about, but I completely would agree. We're not, engagement to date has been a good litmus test, and it's served us well, but it's not enough, right? We have to start going deeper. We have to start really understanding and asking questions that gets to that whole person experience, right? Really what makes someone tick. People want to be connected to something greater. They want to be connected to a company that is giving something back, that's focused on social injustice, that's focused on the environment, right? This stuff is actually ultimately gonna, I think, drive longer term engagement. There's so many good questions coming in, Alice. I wonder whether people have changed their engagement answer because last year taught them how tenuous and uncertain work roles and certainty are. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think we saw this with engagement levels during the financial crisis. I think that's a similar thing where they're in that uncertainty initially, or through uncertainty initially, people tend to come together, but then they start to get, but then they start to wonder more about, survival ideas start to kick in, and right, we kind of move down a rung or 2 on Maslow's hierarchy in terms of I think what's important for people. I would agree. Sanja, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So, I mean, Dan was kind of alluding to this. What do you think about employee engagement as a construct? Does it still make as much sense as we move forward? One, and then related to that, are surveys going to continue to be the best way to do this, or do we need to, or are we at a new dawn now where we need to think about understanding experiences or perceptions and behaviors in a new way for individuals?
Yeah, everything. So with employee engagement, it's interesting because I think if you look at, like, I'm thinking back, I'm not going to date myself, but when I got my PhD and what the articles were being called, I think at the time it was still like employee satisfaction or something like that. And then we went to engagement, and now it's kind of experience, and it's got this like life cycle. And I think it continues to go back to, like, we don't want to say productivity, but from an organizational standpoint, like, you're kind of probing at that. And then the organizations that have the good heart are kind of thinking about happiness. And I know there's data that shows you can be really happy but not really productive. So which one does a company really care about? Could they care about both? Are they really trying to get the productivity? And, we're calling it all these different things. I think how people feel will continue to be important. I don't know.
Oh, we lost.
Did we lose?
We'll call it engagement.
She's
I
back.
think.
Oh, we
You
lost
guys
you for
lose me? Okay, let me know.
Yeah, you're back. You were gone for like maybe 8 seconds.
All right. So I'll rewind and let me know if it happens again because I can switch Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Let me see if I do that now. So one thing that I was saying is that there are different, let me actually switch before I continue to talk.
Well, while you're doing that, yeah. Yeah, actually, I can't wait to hear what you're going to say. So I don't even want to interject. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to think about the constructs, and how much do the traditional constructs continue to make sense? And then there's a market. Yes, we can hear you, but you're still a still frame.
Yeah, we have your voice, but you're still.
The video will probably catch up in a minute. Oh.
There you go. Looks like we're waiting to connect. While we're waiting for Sanja to come back, Pat, one thing I think what we've all been working through is understanding, why. So why did we see engagement in a traditional sense rise, right? And I think, real fast, I think we can all agree, there was this feeling of connectedness, being a part of something bigger. Hey, Sanja, it looks like you're back.
I'm 3 for 3. My internet's failing the last 3 days.
I think it's good. There we go. Now it's crisp. Your voice is crisp. So what? I was just going to quickly roll. There's kind of 4 things when we talk about. Well, actually, what? Let's have you answer the question, because if you remember what it was, or Pat can rephrase it.
I remember. So I'll be more concerned to buy back some time. No, so my answer around engagement is I think we're going to continue to need to understand people, but to what you guys talk about so incredibly well is that it's not just going to be engagement. It's going to be so much more. So it is going to be that whole experience, because the idea is the companies will still want the person to bring them best selves to work. And if you think about it, if you can, you probably want happier people more than grouchy people just because of that atmosphere. And you really want the productive people because it will impact the bottom line of your organization. And so all of those things will stay relevant. But to your point, I think how we measure it will continue to change. I think we have an opportunity to broaden it. Now, I'm not saying we need to continue with surveys just because I work for a survey company. I work for it because I believe in them. But I think, looking back, if we go back now, because Dan, I think you kind of gave me permission to compare this to relationships because you're in it, with me on that train of thought, is that imagine your significant other and imagine there's something going on, right? And you might look for clues, you might look to understand what is happening, but you probably won't avoid having a conversation with them. It's not going to be, okay, I'm going to see, are they eating okay? Are they sleeping okay? What's going on at work? There might be additional things that you want to tune into, but the ability to share that information, I don't think it should go away. Maybe how we do it, to do it more empathetically, to do it a lot less cold. And there's always skepticism, right? So you fill out a survey and you're like, are they going to know it's me? Do I tell them that I'm miserable? What's going to happen? There's huge opportunity to continue to improve that. There's huge opportunity to ask people things that they care about versus just how they can be a better employee. But I think much more it'll be the complement of what else do we look at versus yanking that and saying we can actually do something instead and we don't have to do that anymore. That's at least I'm a huge, as you can tell, and I love talking with people. I love connecting with people. So thinking about taking that away, whether it's electronically or in person, I'm like, no, add, but don't take it away.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's making sure that we create that safe place to have conversation, honest, transparent conversation, whether it's a relationship, and that's tough because, if you have something you want to share with somebody and it's going to be hard, avoidance. Human beings are good at avoidance, and in the workplace, if you apply that same thought process, we don't necessarily feel like we have the permission right? To really let people know how we feel, what matters to us. And I think, that's a big reason why engagement did increase last year, is because of that connectedness, and because of, I always joke, and I think Ken Oler's on, and Ken and I have worked together, and Pat as well, for years, and we always joke the how are you doing today question. It actually started to mean something, right? So the person asking, how are you doing, cared about what the response was going to be. And the person being asked that question actually gave an honest answer to how they're feeling. And so we started to open up this door to deeper conversations. And that really was a big part of why I think engagement started to rise. But that also can be exhausting for managers and leaders, and especially leaders who have big teams. So we started to have a little bit of burnout. We started to have this stress, and obviously a lot fed into that. So let me shift this conversation a little bit to mental health and stress and well-being. We know this is kind of an artifact of everybody jumping in, going above and beyond in 2020. Nobody expected 2020 to happen the way it did. And kudos to so many of us, so many great leaders out there and employees who just rose to the occasion, went above and beyond. But exhaustion levels have set in, and they're still here, and they're alive and well. And we know this is a number one priority for organizations this year. So how do we tackle it, right? How do we make sure it's not just lip service when we say stress and uncertainty and mental health and well-being, we're going to tackle it. But what do we do to make sure those conversations are really happening, and to make sure we're taking care of our people?
I think part of it, just to jump in on that, Dan, is, I mean, there is a good reason why employee experience as a category has taken shape, because, and more specifically, employee experience design. Because a lot of this work starts at, I think, at the design level. And, as I was hearing you talk, Sanja, and your responses as well, Dan, even in the previous conversation, so much of what we need to do is think about who are we designing for with, for this, for the individual and for the organization. And then how do we make sure whatever it is we design, brings them benefits, right? And they get a benefit out of that classic design work. And like you said, that how are you feeling question is a great example, because that actually, from a design perspective, the benefit that brings is it's a construct for a healthy conversation. It's a moment, it's an exchange, a connection, and it frames it in a nice way. But if we take that step back, like you said, Dan, we think more broadly about that kind of whole person experience, well-being. That's one. Two, and this is kind of our next big category we're getting into, thinking about the work from home reality, and then what I would describe as probably the hybrid work model of the future. There's this huge sort of design initiative that I think is where many organizations need to be focused now, which is we kind of almost have to just not get caught up in our individual disciplines and really take that big step back to think about what are we doing to bring benefits for the individuals? What are we doing? What's the plan to be able to kind of create a new culture and a new work experience? And then how do we know it as an organization that we're doing it well?
Yeah.
Sanja, what are you think about that?
How do we change the world?
How do we do it?
Oh, I have so many thoughts. So I would say, like, maybe the one blessing in disguise that happened in 2020 is that I'm not basing this on data at all. I'm basing this just on personal experience, is that a lot of us had like, oh shit moments when it came to our mental health. And that even for the best of us, they're like, I got that. Like, some days I wake up, I'm like, I'll snap in something and I'll be like, who was that? Like, what did I just say? Like, what did I do? I think people tend to be a lot more empathetic and a lot more understanding of others when they've gone through something themselves. The reason I say that is because I think, again, without a study in my hand, the most people have had some kind of burnout, stress challenge. It doesn't have to be a full breakdown or anything like that, where they will understand now when it happens to somebody else. So they're more open, more understanding to that. I think a huge thing. So for me, what was interesting, as you were mentioning before, I most of my adult life I spent in the US. Then I went back to Europe, where I'm originally from. Then I moved to Latin America. And what was interesting, a pattern that I saw about stigma around mental health is in the US. I left the US around 7 years ago. More people talked about it, but still not openly. In the UK, a little bit more. And I came to Argentina and I would say like, hey, ask a friend, do you want to go have coffee? Oh, for sure. I have a therapy appointment at 6, but right after my therapist, I'll go.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. And
Yeah.
I mean, literally everybody, family, friends. And so it's almost, if you don't have a therapist here, it's strange. It's, I think, more common than like a physician.
Mhm.
The reason I say that is because I think it's critical. I think organizations, leaders are going to need to lead by example, be transparent about what they're doing about their wellness and health and well-being and mental health and all of that. I think we're really going to also need to think about generations, or if you're a global organization, the different cultures. Part of the reason why I say generations too is again, a parallel outside of work, but I think a good one. My parents now live in Serbia, and they were telling me about signing up for the COVID vaccine and the process there. And they said, the government did a really good job, but what they found is, they had a really great online form and you sign up. Well, most people who are in the first group that are 75 and older don't have a computer or they don't know how to do it. And it took them a little bit to realize that and come up with a plan B, and they did, but it wasn't on day one. I don't even know if it was on month one. So for organizations, if you think about different age groups, different beliefs, is how do you create a space where you're providing, where you're saying, I believe in this, I'm going to provide you support for it. I'm going to lead by example, because I'm not, as your leader, going to say everybody should, get support in this, but I'm okay. Like, even if you don't need to go, like, just go do it. And then check in on people and make sure that, because I think even when we do research, even when we do things with our best intentions, we can miss some groups, and a lot of times it's the most critical ones.
Mm.
And so that would be a little bit of my recommendation. It's a must. Organizations need to make this a part of it. I'm glad we're moving towards that, because it does help the whole person. It helps with balance. It helps with burnout. All of this is coming up, but make sure that the right groups are being reached in a way that they can be accepting to it.
Yeah, right. And so if you think of that too, like the approach to that is for organizations is persona work, right? Understanding who are the different
Yes.
groups that we need to be focused on, and then designing the benefits and
Yes.
resources and process for those personas. Yeah, Dan, I
Yes.
jumped on you.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing, and then I want to take us to a final topic. I can't believe how fast this is going. We're
Yeah,
45 minutes in, so
it's
we chat
great.
for hours. Does everyone have about four hours? Let's go all afternoon. Talking about generations, there's some data that's out there that we might assume that younger generation, Gen Z, some of Gen Y, would be absolutely fine through all this because they're good with technology, right? Using Zoom is second nature, using WhatsApp, messaging. But actually, this is a generation that's starting their lives, right? This is a generation where being connected to people, building relationships in person is so critical. And many of them are living with roommates, right? Looks like we might have lost Sanja again.
I
Let's
think she's
see.
still there.
Oh
I think she's
no.
Is she
still there.
there?
I see her. I can
Okay.
still hear her.
I don't, unfortunately, but
Oh
you're, as
no,
long as
I'm
you're
here.
as long as everyone else can see you, that's good. So this is the feeling of loneliness and isolation is really setting in there. So we can't just make assumptions to say, well, the young generation, they're good to go, right? And in fact, we really have to the, like Pat said, around persona, really understand what's important to different parts of the workforce. And this is not just generational, right? This is gender. We know this is affecting. There's a lot of data out there that indicates this is hitting women a lot harder for a various number of reasons. This is certainly hitting, service industry workers a lot harder. Those that don't have the luxury of working from home in their home office, right? Resentment can set in those cases. So yeah, I mean, so I would, I guess I agree with everything you both were saying, and kind of let me lead us to a final topic point, which is this idea around a constant change mentality, and what we mean by that. And Sanja, I really would love to get your thoughts on this. We're not suggesting that chaos is good. What we're suggesting is actually the complete opposite, right? So in a constant change mentality, you're learning how to operate with a steady hand with chaos and uncertainty around you, right? So you're
Yeah.
actually learning how to be stable when shit's hitting the fan around you. What happened in 2020 is we didn't quite know how to react. We did what we had to, but we're paying for it now, right? Everyone jumped in, everyone went 150%. But what we need to learn how to do is understand change. I mean, the road ahead, uncertainty is just, that is the new normal. Uncertainty is, there is no end point where we're going to get back to some normal. It's going to be changing. Like everything's
Yeah.
changed, work has changed, the world has changed, period, right? There's no debating that. So how do we prepare organizations to build culture that can sustain and have an armor around them that allows them to navigate through constant change? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because if you look at a lot of research, like so many people are resistant to change, and that's in our nature. And it's the idea that you would rather not lose something you have than necessarily gain something you don't. And so helping with that concept at a large scale is not easy. Again, looking through 2020, the fact that it did happen to everyone, most people made it through okay. I wouldn't say everyone. People were hit differently, whether it was health-wise, economic. But I think if we're here able to have that conversation, at least we made it through it. And so it's helping people understand maybe what was it that they were able to leverage in themselves to be able to do that, how they can leverage those kinds of things that got them through 2020 and now beginning of 2021. And for organizations to create again a space where they're supporting people, where they're helping them through those different evolutions, where in many different ways, we're scared when something changes, how is it going to impact us? And I know, again, like I always give personal examples because I feel like I've experienced so many different things in my life because of so much change that I think sometimes I can relate. If any one of my organizations had gone through a change, I thought, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to, and my parents or my partner would, but you're doing really well. Like you're really valuable. But no, but there's change. Like no, they're going to like, and so I knew that innate feeling. So as much as companies can show, it's a bit of a like a four-letter word. I don't know the buzzword of transparency, but as much as organizations can be intentional about their doing, have that candid conversation with their people, be honest about the benefit, provide the support for the change that people need. Because a lot of times, like we're saying there, Dan, you were mentioning not just the age differences, but the gender differences, the socioeconomic, like there are so many different nuances. So to be able to support people in different ways, show them what's in it for them. You can't always alleviate everything, but if you prepare in such a way, I think you'll be able to take the people with you. But you have to be conscious of doing those specific things because I do think that they will be tremendously helpful. Yeah. Is it going to be easy? No. I don't think it'll be easy for organizations, but it's necessary.
Well, it's really interesting to hear you talk about that, Sanja. And Ben Brad actually put a comment in that kind of continue or builds on what you're saying. But to work it back, a few things I've heard you say, which I really like. One is that kind of openness to therapy. I mean, just that as a notion. And there's a broader culturalness there, which is it's okay to have needs around your mental health and your well-being. That's first and foremost, and organizations need to sponsor that and they need to encourage that. And then two, I think Ben's got a really good point here, which is the importance from a design perspective of allowing people to connect, because I do think there's a power of community that happens around shared experiences and that connectedness, where we don't feel alone and isolated, because that is what we're feeling. That's what people are feeling a lot. So how do we work through that? And the good news is that a lot of technology can help enable that. So I mean, I'll take a step out. I had a therapy session this morning over video with my therapist, right?
He's talking about his relationship with his brother. I know it.
I know. It's just like, just damn it. He's so overbearing.
It's just like my younger, he comes in, he's always wants to do this and do that. It's just crazy.
But how great I can do that over video, and so I mean, the reason I say that is, I mean, it's helpful for me And there's a way of being able to serve that up now as a, a process, as a resource. It's so much easier through tech. So again, that designer mind we bring to this, a lot of the ideas you had were incredible. And I think, so that it's accepting the importance of that whole person experience and then starting to reimagine how to design for the needs of different, the specific needs that people have throughout our organizations.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Pat and Sanja, I mean, the new definition, leaders who are comfortable, saying, I don't know the answer, or I feel this too. This idea that your leader is supposed to be untouchable and know all the answers and know exactly what the future is going to hold in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 months. The most amazing thing, again, to go back to 2020, that happened, the great leaders that rose were the ones that actually joined hands with their teams, right? The ones that actually said, I don't know, but we're going to get through this together. I have no idea, or I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I feel it too. I don't know the answers, right? I think that builds, and kind of to Ben's point too, that builds team. It builds trust. It builds a feeling of safety. It builds a feeling of connectedness. So all these things it's critical for organizations to continue to find space and inspire and find ways to make sure you're giving everyone an opportunity to really to be themselves, to be open and be honest. And thank you, Pat, for sharing that personal story about therapy this morning. I joke sometimes that consultants for organizations, we actually maybe should start to be called therapists. because a consultant that comes in and says, we're going to have a 3-hour powwow meeting and we're going to figure out your roadmap and your plan, and then I'm going to walk away. Oh, really? That's like a therapist coming in and saying, let's meet for 3 hours, and then I'll see you in a year. Good luck. Right? So the best consulting are those that kind of hand in hand and hold hands and check in, and they're there, and you live through it and you experience the change together.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to jump into, we've got about 8 minutes left, the final topic, which is another, because this feels great, but there's another maybe wrinkle out there, and it's more of an external factor. It's certainly something we've been experiencing here in the US, and we'll call it cultural polarization. And this is, I think, yet another factor. And what do I mean by that? I mean, these very coalescing viewpoints that people have, kind of tribalism that people have in terms of their belief systems and value systems that are just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I mean, Dan and I have experienced this in our family, and with some other friends and things. This is becoming serious stuff. So if you're doing culture work and you are trying to build this world we just talked about, which is great at the individual level, but this is yet another dynamic. So I mean, Sanja, I'm just curious to kind of get just to help frame that a little bit. How do you think about that, and what do you think are some of the ways to, I don't know, couch it, think about it, maybe begin to solve for it? And I know this is a big one.
Aren't you supposed to have like an easy question? Like
you're on the spot.
And you got 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes.
Yeah. How do we solve societal polarization? Go.
Would this be a time for my internet to break out? Man, it's funny because people ask me, sitting in Argentina, like, what do people think about what's going on in the US? I'm like, I'm in Argentina, people. We got our own problems. Like, we're thinking about the US. And with part of my life being in, between Serbia, US, and Argentina, like, I'm at capacity. No, but gosh.
There's probably some common themes you've seen, right? Yeah. Are there common themes that you've seen between different places? Or is it completely different in every different place?
No. I mean, I think there are common things, and they're to me, it's, when I was younger, when I was trying to figure out, I went into organizational psychology. Like, I decided that, I think, in my early 20s. I went and got my PhD after undergrad. So I knew this was the line of work that I wanted to be in. But there's something about travel that has always attracted me. And I think by now, damn you, 2020. But up until then, I went to like 60 different countries, across Latin America, Europe, Asia. And to me, being able to firsthand experience, be somewhere and be in people's, see how they live, see how they interact, was incredibly eye-opening. I think I would make a lot of money if I had a solution for companies at this point. I don't yet, but thinking in the future is how do we help people really truly get into somebody's shoes? And again, I've talked about empathy so much and it's opening and it's understanding, but I also lived through a lot of things where I found that it was really difficult for me to understand where somebody was until I really actually experienced what they did. I could be understanding, I could listen, but it was really hard to feel what they felt. And so how can we create maybe those kinds of opportunities? And I don't know, I don't have concrete examples today. I think for some larger organizations, different assignments or people really collaborating, giving them a different goal, choosing people with different backgrounds. I think doing some of those things intentionally will add a level of complexity when it comes to teams, when it comes to creating these kinds of environments. But I do think in the end, being intentional and spending time on that will have a tremendous impact on culture. So you can do it in different kinds of levels, but really creating those kinds of dynamics where somebody would say, I never thought I would understand that person's point of view, or I never thought that we would be able to collaborate because our opinions are so different on religion, on politics, and all these really big, heavy things. But now that I've been put in a situation, I think I can do it. I think maybe, again, I don't know. You asked me really hard questions, so I don't know if that's the kind of answer.
That's because we
No,
think,
it
that's 'cause we
was,
think you're really
it was a
smart.
great answer. And you know what I appreciate?
Next,
It was an honest answer. And and
next
Pat, yeah,
time I'm
great,
coming
great.
with vodka. If you guys invite me back, not water.
Yeah,
Vodka.
next time. Yeah, no, it's a great answer. And Pat and I have, before the workday begins, we always debate this. Well, actually, hardly a debate. We typically just rile each other up talking about this. But I think it comes down to one thing we've thought about and we believe in is, we're more connected and we have more in common with everybody than we know. We kind of walk around with these filters on now and this new lens where we quickly make a judgment about somebody based on their belief system. And immediately because of that, there's sort of an opinion we make before we even understand who they are as a person. So we don't want to be arbiters of what's right or wrong or truth, or, well, a little bit of truth is always nice. But I think organizations have an obligation and an opportunity to create a purpose and a mission that overshadows sort of what I call the trivial differences that might seemingly set us apart. And so within the organizational walls, if we can create something we all believe in that's bigger than this polarization, that's going to help, number one. And number two, we talk about this, it's just bringing back some love and caring and understanding. And those words in HR, love and caring aren't used as much as they need to be. And I'm using them, and every time I'm speaking, I'm bringing it up. And that's just the way it goes. So everyone's got to get used to that. But yeah, love and caring, we have to, show up with that, with our open minds, open hearts, and we have to create a purpose and a mission and a vision that's bigger than these petty differences that we might all have.
No, I think that's a great point. And yesterday, Al asked me something at the end of my session. He said, not in these words, but like, caring for people in an organization should be important, and kind of like, how would you convince people of that along those lines? And I rambled. And then last night, as I was thinking, I was like, I know what I should have said. So I'm not saying now because I think it applies here.
That'll be our close.
That can be our close. I think that there's so many organizations that want to care about people. They want to have this purpose and they don't know how. And so in our work, I think there are going to be organizations that still need convincing. Maybe they're not the ones that we spend time with today, but the ones that actually care to connect these people, but are saying, how do I do it? Because it's not an easy answer. To spend time there and then have them lead by example, I think is where we should be spending our time, because I think that'll have the tremendous impact. And then hopefully everybody else will see that and say, okay, I want to be like that too. But starting with the ones to say, I have the passion for this, I have the desire, please tell me how. Saying, I'm in, let's figure it out together. I don't have maybe a sheet with step 1, step 2, But I'm convinced that if your passion is there, we can figure it out and do it.
That's a pretty good, inspiring, optimistic ending. Thank you. And thanks to everyone. I see some great comments, and sorry, we've been in such great conversation. Allison, yes, therapy's fabulous. Thank you for double downing and triple downing on that. And Ben, thanks for all your great comments. Michael, obviously some great comments. Hopefully everyone was reading through some of this. So I'll just end by saying thanks to this community. Thanks, Sanja, for joining us. Thanks to everyone for creating this incredible hour for Pat and I. We're really proud to be bringing this live every week. We hope everyone had some fun here. Do connect with each other. And if you don't know someone's last name and you want to connect with them because of the brilliant comments, shoot me an email and I'll help connect you. This is all about connecting with each other. This is all about just sharing great ideas. So Pat, as my younger brother, my older brother, thank you for being my partner in crime. Sanja,
Likewise,
thank you for being, I consider you an awesome friend and a great colleague, and just I really appreciate you joining us for our premiere today.
Thank you, Sanja.
It was such a pleasure to be here, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone, and have an incredible Thursday. Have a great Friday, and then roll into an incredible weekend. So take care. Be radical, everybody.
Be radical.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.